Hi there. Let me ask you a question. How much do you know about your great-grandparents? Do you know their names? Could you tell me much about their stories, about their childhood, their lives, what they did for a living, their love lives, how they proposed to each other, all that kind of stuff? What about your great-great-grandparents? How much do you know about them? Well, if you're like the rest of us, chances are you probably don't know that much. I mean, let's be honest, most of us know bits about our great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents. So the question that follows on from that is, what will your great-grandchildren know about you and about your life? What about your great-great-grandchildren? Will they know your name? Will they know about your life's highs and the lows, the struggles you grappled with, the achievements that you accomplished, your personality, your character, what kind of things you loved to do for the fun of it, what really makes you you, why you made the choices that you made in life, how you came to be living where you live, and how your children came to be born, and the romances that led to that, and their grandparents, all those kind of life stories. Well, in the 21st century, we have the opportunity like never before to record more details about our lives than any of our ancestors could. But that doesn't mean that we necessarily do. We have lots of social media posts and photographs, but they don't necessarily tell the full story of who we are. So I'm Hayden Rushworth. I run a company called Family Legacy Films. Well, I'm a filmmaker. It's just one of the services that we offer. Now, we recognize, so we offer people the opportunity to record their own family history stories. And obviously we're professionals. We need to earn a living, so I charge money for what I do. But there are a lot of people who'd quite like to have a go themselves at recording their own family history story. And if you're one of those people, then you go for it. This is great because this video is my top 10 tips on filming yourself and preserving your story for your future generations. So step one, you're going to need a video camera. They are more available than ever before. You need one that can, with a memory card that's big enough to record hours and hours of footage potentially. You could do it in short bursts on a smartphone, but then you've got to keep moving the footage off. And what we do tend to have is lots of video cameras in our society that will film for short bursts, but they don't tend to do too well over long stretches. But nonetheless, you can buy cameras for about 300 quid that are digital SLRs and even camcorders. But the first thing you'll need is a video camera that can record long stretches of video without being interrupted and turned off and running out of memory. So you need a big memory card, 32 gigabytes, 64 gigabytes, that would about do it. The next thing that you would need is a really good microphone. The kind of microphone that you're going to need is a wired microphone that looks like this. I'll leave a link below or right in here where you can buy a microphone for £13 that will clip on to your lapel, and it's a wire that will go straight into your camera. That's what you need. And it's those tiny little things that you see on newsreaders that kind of sticks out here and it picks up your voice. Now you need to have it as close as possible to your mouth so that you get as clean a signal as possible. And then the other end goes straight into your video camera. Make sure you get a video camera that has a socket for a microphone, by the way. You need to make sure that it's positioned away so that the microphone isn't touching anything. Otherwise, you'd get this little scraping noise that sounds like this. Now, I'm stroking my microphone ever so gently. Now, imagine if this was you chatting away and one of your hair or a piece of your clothing was there, and every time you moved and every time you used your hands, it went like this and it went like that. So it's really aggravating, and you wouldn't know until afterwards. So keep your microphone somewhere where it's not actually touching anything. So step 3 is to find a quiet room. Find an indoors place, quiet, without children running around, without dogs barking, without traffic that's really noisy behind you. As much as possible, try and keep the noise outside down. So if you choose an environment and close the windows, choose an environment that's noise-free. That makes it really easy to hear what you're saying. Okay, the next thing you need is lighting. Now, don't worry too much about this. Things to avoid are, try and avoid anything where you've got a bright light that is from a window shining on you too brightly in one direction. Ideally, you really want to kind of control the light. So often you can get just a table lamp and with a shade around it, and position it quite close to your face so that your face can be illuminated. It's better to have your face illuminated than what you don't want is to have a very bright window behind you and you end up just being a little silhouette with this bright window right behind you. Try and avoid that. So have a background that's a bit darker than your table lamp, and position your table lamp about here so that it just brightens you up nicely, and that would do for lighting. That means that people can see you. Step 5, one at a time. If spouses particularly are interviewed together and start discussing a subject, often you can end up talking over each other and interrupting each other. Worst case scenario, particularly if you're interested in filming particularly elderly relatives who, once they get into a story, they get immersed into the story. And it happened in my own family. My mum did a recording of some of my I think it was a great uncle and great aunt. They were just chattering over each other. They couldn't hear a word each other was saying. And it was lovely, but it didn't work. So just one person at a time so that each person can just tell their story the way that they want to. Step 6 is choose your story. Now I'll put a link here right next to this video on the website of all the kinds of things that you could talk about. But the list is almost endless. This is your life. These are your stories. These are the things that matter to you. You get to choose. So pick the things that matter most to you, the things that you think your great-grandchildren would find most interesting. Things about what you did with your life, career choices, education, where you lived, some of the decisions you made, some of the big difficult decisions, and why you made those decisions. A lot is revealed about character when we talk about the reasoning behind why we make the choices that we do. So why did you choose to marry the person that you married? Why did you choose to live where you lived? Why did you choose the career that you chose? Why did you make some of the dumb choices that you made? Oh, those are juicy. Those are interesting. You may not want to share them, but you can bet that your great-grandchildren will be fascinated by your dumb choices just as much as they'll be really fascinated by your really clever, brilliant choices. We all have them. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's life. Okay, step 7. This is quite important. Ideally, find somebody to talk to who can sit behind the camera or just next to the camera. So it would look like this. This is how they do it in interviews. I'm not looking at you now, I'm looking at the imaginary interviewer who's right there, and you're chattering away to this interviewer and you're telling them all your story, and the camera is positioned right there. You see it a lot on television, don't you? So find somebody to tell your story to. The reason for this is that it's really helpful to have a stranger listening to your story who can stop and pause you in the middle of something and say, sorry, what did you mean by that? And then you realize, yes, and then you explain more. And things that you take for granted that you know all about, a stranger may not know all of the details, and a stranger who you're talking to would pick up on those things and ask you, sorry, I didn't understand that. What do you mean? Who was that? And how was that person related to that? And sorry, did you mean that this person ran away with the milkman, or this person? Oh, this person, right. And so it's really helpful to have somebody sit there to prompt you to clarify things that may be a little bit confusing. And that way, your great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren will also have that clarified, because you know how it is when we tell our story, we think we know it, and we'll chatter away about all kinds of things without realizing that we're not making as much sense as we think we are. In our heads, we all make sense. But when we tell our stories, half of it comes out of our mouth and the other half is still spinning around in our head. So having a person to speak to helps to make sure that the whole story comes from our head and out and creates a real story. Also, an advantage to having a person come and sit next to the camera is that when you schedule that time with them, it kind of focuses your attention on getting this job done. It helps to beat the procrastination element. that we all tend to do. On that note, by the way, an extra little handy helpful hint. Probably a good time to pick milestone anniversaries or birthdays as a time to choose to make this kind of film, this kind of video. And just because it gives you an excuse. The days, the weeks, the months, the years disappear faster and faster and faster as we get older. And sometimes there's something really good that we mean to do, and we can be meaning to do it for years, and before you know it, it doesn't happen, and we've been meaning to do it for years, and we've always thought, oh, we could just do that tomorrow, we can do that next week. So use a milestone birthday or an anniversary as your leverage to make yourself get into action, to sit down and record some of these. Step 8, create a digital treasure chest. Well, really, it's a family history treasure chest. Now, what I mean by that is all kinds of things and possessions and memorabilia, photos, journals, and other things that you may have are probably in your home, and as time goes by, they'll be passed around the family, and they may be passed around and distantly passed elsewhere without necessarily being labeled properly. Things can get lost over time. So create a digital treasure chest, which is you get hold of an external hard disk drive. They're great. When we do family legacy films, we bring them with us, and that gives you lots of space to work with. And find yourself a really nice box, a really nice keepsake box that looks like it's something important, that looks like it has something inside that's important. You don't want family members to accidentally come across your external hard drive and wipe over it accidentally because they're not sure what it is, or it just gets discarded because it doesn't look important. Keep it in an important looking place. These boxes you can buy online for 30 or 40 pounds or less or more. Sometimes if you really want to spend some money, you can go with a fireproof one. But these are options that you can decide yourself. And when we do family legacy films, we bring one of those boxes with us so that you get to have a keepsake box at the end. But it's important to have something to keep your external hard drive in, so that all of your memories go into this external hard drive. So all of your photographs, you could take photographs of your photographs, and it's a cheap, quick, easy way of digitizing photographs, and they can go into this external hard drive as well. But ideally, you need an external hard drive to serve as a central place to keep all of your digital memories gathered together, photos, videos, audio files, everything that's important to you, to put it together into this one place and keep that in a safe place. And that's your life recorded digitally, held in a single place. The advantage of a digital family memories treasure chest is that can be copied as well. It can be copied and copied and copied and copied. You can give a copy to all of your children and grandchildren, and it's very, very easily. And as time goes on, something that is currently the size of an external hard drive will end up being on a tiny little thumb drive that fits on our keychain. Step 9, name your video files appropriately. Rather than allowing the default kind of IMG _0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the names that come off the file, that are on the files when it comes straight out of the camera, they mean nothing. But if you rename it with the date, actually the date will be on the file. So you rename it with your name, like who's on the camera, and the subject. In fact, when you're telling stories, it's often helpful to make sure you stop the camera and start the camera again when you're changing whole stories, because then it's easier to look through and pick out different stories. You can go through, ideally, a folder full of files that have different stories. Our proposal, our honeymoon, the children's first year, my early years, my recollections of my grandparents, my recollections of my parents, my recollections of my great-grandparents, my early child, all those kind of things. Create a separate little file, a separate little video file that's named appropriately, so that with your name on it, so that anybody can see it and go, oh, okay, that makes sense, I know who this is. It can often be helpful as well to just hold up a piece of paper at the start of your little interview with your name and the date written on a piece of paper. And that way, it doesn't matter what happens to the digital file, anybody looking at the start of it will always be able to say, oh, that was great grandma, and this was the date that it was done, and this is the location that it was in. And even you could even have a dry whiteboard from Asda for like £6, and you could write the title and just hold it up, say, My Early Years, you know, and it's another way of making sure that on your video is kind of hard-coded, hardwired into the video, the subject and who you are, so that that gets preserved properly. And the final step, the final handy helpful hint, your digital treasure chest, give one to a family member. So you need to buy 2 external hard drives that are the same size. Make them, format them so that they can be read by either a Mac or a PC, and make sure that you have an identical copy for another family member, and let them have that so that you have a backup just in case there's a flood or a fire or something gets lost or stolen, or one of them breaks down and it turns out after 60 years there's some rust in there and it isn't turning. I'll come on to that in a moment. So create a copy and give that to a family member. When we do family legacy films, I always bring 2 copies of the external hard drive. So the customers always are left with a keepsake box with 1 hard drive with everything in there, and another external hard drive to give to a family member, and plenty of space for you to store other things on as well. Here's a valid point. If we're trying to save this for, let's say, for 100 years, 150 years, 200 years, you could argue, well, the technology that we use today will be outdated in 100 years, surely. And that's a fair assumption. And it probably will. And there'll be new, better ways of recording photos and videos and that kind of thing. But what we tend to find now is that nobody is in a hurry to change photos, like the photo style of JPG. That's been around for a while now. Nobody's in a hurry to update them. There are probably better versions, kinds of technology to use, but nobody's really in a hurry to do that because so many people are using JPEGs. But as technology moves on, there will always be a way for you to migrate one file type into another and copy it from one to another, and to copy all of the files from the outdated external hard drive that uses a USB. You know, it's fine now, but in 30 years nobody will be using USBs anymore, but that's okay, because you just update it to the next tech and the next thing and the next thing. It just means that whoever in the family is the family historian periodically needs to know when it's time to take all of the digital family history treasure chests and just update them to the latest versions of the latest version of a photo or a video, and copy them onto something that can be read by current kind of computers. And as time goes on, this will be something that we'll be able to do automatically, because the world is full of treasured memories that are held on video files and photos. And you can bet that there will be companies galore who will be keen to make sure that those photos and videos are not left behind. There'll be the whole world will have a vested interest in not wanting to lose previous photos and videos. So the technology, as it moves on, there will be a way of rolling it backwards to take the old tech and bring it up to date. So that's my prediction, at least. Okay, that was a long video. Thanks for watching. Please do get in touch. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to ring me directly. My phone number is here on the website, or just get in contact directly. I'm happy to answer questions. If you get to the point where we're always impressed when people give things a go themselves. If you get to the point where you feel like, do you know what, I could do this myself if I tried hard enough, but I'm not going to do it, I'll just call the professionals, then please consider us as people to come and help make you your family legacy film. Thank you very much for your time. Good luck, and please let me know if it goes well or if it goes badly, because I need to know so we can give other people good advice. And thanks very much for watching. Bye.